Hello and welcome to the inaugural Sheldon Bosley Night podcast. My name is Kate Gould and I am the Content and Media Manager at Sheldon Bosley Night. I'm joined today by our two custodians, Dan Jackson and Mike Cleary. Welcome to you both. Before I start, I would like to say a big thank you to 1 Mill Street for hosting us today in their fabulous studio. For those of you who don't know, 1 Mill Street is in the heart of Leamington Spa, where we have one of our very many offices. And it's the most amazing space. You can hire out some of the rooms for networking meetings or just general chatting with colleagues. They've got a great cafe and this fantastic studio. So thank you very much for hosting us today. So Dan and Mike, I wanted to start by asking you about Sheldon Bosley Night, how it all began, how it's started, its rich heritage and history, and how it's grown and evolved over the years. And then I would like to maybe discuss your own route into land and property and into the business itself and what it means to you. So Dan, tell me a bit about Sheldon Bosley Night and how it started.
Thanks, Kate. It's an interesting story, and it's an ever evolving story. I think, actually, Kate. I've been in the business 10 years now, and undoubtedly in that period, it's experienced a lot of change. But as of last year, we're celebrating our 180th anniversary of being in business of Sheldon Bosley, through its various forms over the years. And certainly from my own experience, you hear all sorts of stories from former partners and from clients who've been involved throughout that period, who have all really got their own story to tell about Sheldon Bosley and the evolution of the business. We were particularly curious recently and instructed a local firm of historians actually to try and delve a little bit deeper into this for us, and rooting through the archives and really trying to piece together the various pieces of that jigsaw in establishing the origins and the background and the evolution of the business through the years. And that was an incredibly interesting exercise. Big shout out to James McIntosh and his team over there based in Chipping Norton, who have spent countless hours trawling through archives, speaking to various local stakeholders, former partners. And I know, Kate, you've been very involved as well more recently in a lot of that work. So it's incredibly interesting. But I think the big thing that came out of that was really establishing a start date. And that's not easy either in its own right. But what has emerged and become clear is was it all really started with a chap called William Bull. So William Bull in the George Hotel, auctioning furniture and chattels, and more latterly guano, which was a bird feces that had come from the Solomon Islands, I think.
Itchybow
Island, and that was in high demand at the time, and a very valuable commodity for farmers looking to increase their yields and everything like that. So that business grew very quickly into something that looks a little bit more like Sheldon Bosley Night of today. So from there, started getting into livestock auctioneering, and we've still got a very proud heritage and associations to this day with the livestock markets locally. And then into property management, farm sales, and all that sort of thing. So that business, having kicked off in 1863, was
1843.
So that business, having kicked off in 1843, was taken on by William Bull and his successors, and then ultimately taken over by John Bosley at the turn of the 20th century. John being the father of Sheldon Bosley, who the business is named after to this day. So, we've got a fantastic document that, as I say, James McIntosh and his team have pulled together. It is fascinating reading, and as with all of these things, those stories come from the people that have been involved over the time, and As I say, we still act for the Bosley family to this day, as indeed we do for a number of farmers and landowners whose fathers, grandfathers, great grandfathers were involved with the business back then. So it's a very rich history. Mm-hmm. It's one that we're incredibly proud to be associated with. And you very kindly introduced us as custodians of the business at the outset of this podcast. And that is very much how we feel about it. It's been going a long time prior to our involvement. And we hope we'll continue to do a long time after we're not here anymore. So that's it. You've
outlined how we started sort of land based particularly. But in the years since, Mike, we've developed into much more than that. We're now very much a multidisciplinary business. So how did we evolve from purely land and auctions to kind of where we are today?
Thanks, Kate. It's been a gradual evolution. If you think of William Ball back in the pub listening to the farmers and what they might need, obviously housing has always been a constant requirement for land to build on. So he built a planning department out the back of that. That more recently has become strategic land as farmers have sold parcels of land for 10, 20, 30 years ahead. They've diversified, having converted barns into other viable businesses. They've gone through planning process to create accommodation for farm workers, which they've then rented out and sold off. So all of these things that now have nice names to, residential sales, lettings and stuff, all came really from those farmers and their requirements.
I suppose it's fair to say as well, Mike, that farm businesses are like any other business in that they've got to evolve over time in terms of adapting to the needs that and the challenges that we faced. And farm diversification is an ever more relevant topic. Nowadays we talk more about renewables and carbon offsetting. Back then, of course, getting some bird fertilizer to increase your yields was the name of the game. So it's all the same challenges as any business, but it's having to evolve and adapt to modern pressures, I suppose. Okay.
But I think also it seems to me, having read the document from James McIntosh, that it's been quite an organic process. It's kind of evolved more than being terribly strategic and kind of corporate. And I think that's kind of, and also the family feel that comes through is still very much today. I think we all feel part of quite a good community. We all feel happy to be at work and to be sort of helping the people that we come across in our day-to-day lives, both within the business and outside as well. And I think you've been involved in quite a few acquisitions recently, haven't you, Mike? So do you want to sort of talk us how that's kind of happened as well for the business?
Yeah, I think Sheldon Bosley, in its current legal form, started the 1st of August 2016. So I just got involved with Oliver Knight from Knight and Rennie the autumn before. Dan and Oliver played tennis. Over a game of tennis, there was an exchange that led to the belief that the two businesses together, Sheldon Bosley in Stratford and Shipston and Knight and Rennie in Kenilworth and Leamington, that were just an estate agency, letting agency, would be better together to look after their clients. And so it took a bit of pulling together, but in August 16 we started. And from there, really, we've just tried to always put the client at the centre of everything we do and do it to the very best of our ability. We acquired a business in Evesham a couple of years later. Again, Dan's contact with Tony Rowland from TLG in Evesham ended up with us buying them. We got a very good team with that enabled us to put proper footprints down and create what is currently the departments that we've got today. So we've got very strong teams for commercial, rural, planning, sales and lettings. And I guess we sort of got on a roll. During lockdown, we vowed to prosper. We took hard decisions early on. We communicated with our staff, whether they were at home or at work, and we came through very strongly. And I think one of the things that occurred during lockdown was what we now know as We Are the Market, which was our own hyperlocal portal, which enabled us to really corral the local agents. We had 61 offices, 31 agents that we got to know very, very well. I think it's fair to say we were trusted in setting that up with them, and that gave us a much wider perspective on our location and what clients wanted and needed, and that kicked us on. Really, there were some very good brands in our neighbourhood, our current neighbourhood, not our original one, like Hawkins over in Nuneaton and Bedworth. Roy wanted to retire. We went through a process, we acquired that. The sales agent then said, I've got a business in Leicester, which is now in your patch, Mike, which he's a very good salesman. So we bought James Selleck, and we've really gone on a roll from there, really just picking up very good quality lettings books for owners who are typically wanting to retire or take a step through to retirement. Having bought 7 businesses in 2011 and thinking that was probably it, we then went on to buy another 6 last year, culminating in our biggest yet, Andrew Granger, which is a phenomenal business out in Leicestershire, remarkably similar to the Sheldon Bosley where this all started, a rural, a planning, a sales and lettings in 3 locations. And so we've sort of now got a bit of a reputation as a firm that is happy to acquire, raise the standards. And so we have a lot of owners coming to us now, talking to us saying, would you, can I pass on my family business to your family business? And we think we'll look after them. And
I think that's it, Mike. Absolutely, is I think a lot of that gets born out of we're not the only business in town, and there are a lot of people doing very good work amongst our competitors and everything else, and many of them we consider friends. But I think that's been a big key to the expansion, is actually being able to hand on heart say to the principals of those businesses that we have acquired that actually, they're in safe hands. We share a lot of the values, and we'll continue to build on the good work that they've done over many preceding years. So, it's absolutely. There's an organisation where we're very proud members of, the Central Association for Agricultural Valuers, who have got a sort of strapline motto that essentially says, "If you do the right thing, come what may." And that's something that we take very seriously, and
absolutely right. Yeah, it's vital.
Want to implement in everything that we do.
Also, I should just mention that we've kind of come full circle, because we reintroduced just over a year ago our auction department, and of course that's doing phenomenally well. So it's lovely to see it come full circle in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we've always done, as I say, certainly from our heritage, and perhaps, I don't know if it fell out of favour in more recent years, but another big part of our ethos is that we will only do something if we can do it properly, resource it properly, and do it our own way. There are lots of online auction houses and different methods that we've never particularly had any great faith in, but we vowed to start doing auctions. What it would have been 2022 now, and we're very fortunate to fall upon Matt Burrows, who has really led the march on that for us, driven that business, which, as you say, Kate, has been incredibly successful in a very short period of time. And I think it's something that is expected of us, in as much as a firm with our heritage and background is expected to. But it's all very well, you've got to actually do these things and do them properly. And I think that's really what's driven the success, is the efforts of Matt and his team in providing such a great auction service, which complements the other things that we do so well. It's another great string to our bow. It's another great service offering for our clients. It won't be for everyone, but those that it is for, it suits incredibly well, and is a great route to market and route to disposing of property that perhaps wouldn't be as appropriate via other means. So.
Yeah, it is part of our DNA that we do this. I mean, the auctions currently getting the headlines because they've had such a good year. But actually, I'd probably take us back to We Are the Market with some other excellent agents. We then set up director's office because we recognised that some calls weren't being picked up when we were busy. So we built a special team that picks up those calls now to enhance our service. We did auction. Last year we set up a conveyancing business called Jefferson Legal that helped 753 property transactions in 2023, its first year. And we're just quietly trialling the launch of Earnest Grant Mortgages, our own mortgage business. So it's much easier to do things with total certainty that the client's at the centre of it if we do it ourselves. And so we're constantly thinking, how can we deliver better and more to our clients? And those are actually 5 examples where we've sort of put our money where our mouth is, and they're all working very well. Well, mortgages will work very well.
So you've both obviously got massive passion for the business, but how did you both get into land and property? You both had different routes in. So Dan, tell me how it was for you.
Yeah. So
and then how also what SBK means to you, how you got into land and property and then the business, and kind of why SBK is important for you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Kate. I probably, like many teenagers, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started embarking, thinking I wanted to be an architect and taking classes in that respect to do so, and walked into the wrong talk one day at Manchester University. Stumbled into a town planning lecture and thought, well, this is fantastic. And 4 years later, qualified with a town planning degree, which I used. It's interesting. I've been giving a couple of talks in local schools recently, which is quite a reflective exercise, and it's possibly not until you reflect on these sorts of things that you really get an appreciation for how these things have come together, because it's been quite a journey. But as I say, town planning degree from Newcastle University. I then had a bit of a period of travelling, did a lot of dairy farming over in New Zealand while I worked out what I wanted to do. And then came back to the UK to work for a property business in Leamington for a small property developer, Greywell, a chap called Rupert Hopcraft, still great mentor, friend to this day, and learned an awful lot about the development process as a whole, really, which really sparked the interest from site finding, acquisitions, going through a planning process, building contracts, snagging paintwork, right through to sort of selling finished houses. And that was a fantastic exercise, learning experience for me, and sort of understanding how those various elements of the process came together. So 3 happy years with Rupert and Greywell, and I was then offered a job with Sheldon Bosley 10 years ago now. Made me feel old. But
poor you.
Poor me. But back in 2014, joined Sheldon Bosley over in Stratford as a junior town planner. Going on from what we said earlier, really helping farmers diversify, whether that's through barn conversions or new houses or farm buildings and other, various bits and pieces. So came into the business to do that, and that went particularly well. We built that department up very quickly, and got a great reputation for that element of work. And then I suppose at the time, this was the sort of, as I say, 2014, 15 sort of time when the planning process and the development process was really opening up. A bit of legislation came in called the National Planning Policy Framework back in 2012, which opened the door for a lot more house building. Stratford, prior to that, had a housing moratorium for the preceding 10 years, and there'd not been a lot happening. And what this legislation did was open the doors from that and enable, say, a lot more large-scale house building. So Sheldon Bosley, by virtue of the rural connections, acting for the people with the green bits around towns and villages, suddenly starting getting bombarded with letters from developers and land promoters, and that was a brilliant process for me. It was the springboard for me personally to get involved in some really exciting projects and work my way through the business from that perspective. And it's still something that I do to this day. I'm still very active in terms of client liaison, and I still do that. Look after our strategic planning teams, and our planning and architecture department to this day, who are, as I say, have gone from strength to strength in that time. And yeah, that's sort of been it really. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, obviously, with the expansion more recently has been great in terms of offering new geographies to us, and getting exposure to different types of clients on new patches. But the core's remained absolutely the same, really. Okay, I still get up every morning, love what I do, and it's still the work that really drives that. It's fantastic work. I'm very lucky to be able to do it.
Excellent. Mike, what about you? Slightly different route? Slightly?
Very different route, yeah. I also didn't know what I wanted to do post-education. I was babysitting for a Lloyds bank manager who actually said, "What are you going to do, Mike?" And I said, "I haven't got a clue." And he said, "Well, why don't you think about the bank? It's a nice, safe job, pays well." So in the absence of anything else, I applied to jobs, got accepted by Midland Bank, got offered a university scheme, but they said, "Actually, why don't you go into a management training scheme," which meant that I would earn money sooner. So I went, as one of 4 kids, I decided to go and get a job in the bank. Loved the bank, dead man shoes, worked there for 15 years, progressed very rapidly, but it wasn't something that I had a true passion about. But on the way to work one day, which was the Nuneaton office, I actually saw a repossession on the Foshill Road in Coventry of a property, and a very good mate of mine was always messing about with houses, so I bought it on my credit card for, I think it was £6,000, and I think I learned a lot of lessons on property on that day. I think we worked out we made enough money for a skiing holiday. No food or drink on the skiing holiday, but it was about £600 I think we made. But I've always had an absolute love of properties, always fiddled with properties. But I think tellingly, I was a manager within the bank probably from very early 20s. I'm trying to work out whether I was 20 or 21. Always managed people, always love selling and getting the best out of people and supporting people and finding the best, safest route to get things done. And I think my passion for people and managing, I can remember the 2 good managers I've had in my whole working life. And so I've always been very keen to be a good manager, hopefully, and to try and lead people fairly and stuff. And so it's come from that. So after 15 years in the bank, I went to work for a client who was earning £2 million a year as a financial services guru in Coventry. I ended up running his businesses for him for 6 or 7 years. I then consulted for a few years, still in the financial services industry, as a director. I was then very fortunate to have twin girls through a fairly unusual method. Kath had cancer when she was young, so we had all sorts of fun and games. So when they came along, I was actually working down in Canary Wharf. So I put some money into a property, strangely, because I've constantly done that. So I called my business partner at the time and said, "We've just bought somewhere, haven't we?" "Yes, it's in Drake's Broughton." So I gave him my measurements and said, "Right, I'll be there tomorrow." Called Kath and said, "I'm a builder." So I became a builder overnight when the girls were 6 months old. We ended up selling the family house to build 3 lovely stone cottages, houses in Napton. And during that time, Oliver had become a good friend. I'd end up mentoring him. I don't think he'd mind me saying that. He used to call me with his problems and challenges, and I think I actually let his very first house for him because he refused to do lettings because it was boring and didn't pay very well. This was obviously before lettings became very valuable. And so, yeah, I helped Oliver out. I think he came for a cup of coffee one day, and I ended up helping him out before I'd agreed to formally join him because I was building some houses. Dan had a game of tennis. The rest is sort of history. I built the houses, sold the houses, 10 offers on 3 houses, didn't go on the internet. So obviously there's something going right here, and bought into the business, and the rest is history, really. I think it's a chance for me, having worked in some very big firms and some very poor firms, to try and do things properly. I think a lot of staff can be not appreciated. I think there's a propensity for owners to take everything and not worry about the people who actually make it work. And so I've always wanted to run my own business. I've always wanted to do things properly, to look after people, to try and make them wealthier than maybe they would be, and to do things properly and never to compromise. And so with Sheldon Bosley Knight, very much Dan and I think the same on this. This is a no compromise pay. We'll do this properly, do the right thing, come what may. We'll fund the business so that we can always do the right thing, and let's just try and be the best that we can and get better every day. And like Dan, I wake up some mornings praying it's light so we can get up and work. Every day is better than the previous day. 8 or 9 years in, I can't remember now. So
you mentioned being the best that we can be for the clients, but also you're very keen on being the best for your staff as well. And I think it's testament to you both that, the staff, I would say, generally love coming to work. We love what we do. We're passionate about it, and passionate about also giving back to our communities in which we live and work. And Dan, I know you did. You've been involved in the Evesham 10K. You did the Cotswold Walk. Tasha in our planning department, she's done abseils for Myton Hospice. We're quite a team when it comes to giving back, aren't we? So
yeah, it's so important. We are so enshrined in the communities in which we live and work, and you can't separate one without the other, really. And so it comes back to doing the right thing. As I say, we constantly want to give back. We are proper community people. I think it's fair to say. So yeah, constantly trying to raise funds for various charities, support good causes in the local community. Sport in particular is very close to our hearts. I know, I forget how many rugby clubs we sponsor these days, but
5 or 6 now, I think.
Quite a lot. And I live in a little village in North Cotswolds called Dumbleton, which is just a complete cricket mad village, and we're very proud to sit on the committee of that club. I've just got them planning permission for a new pitch. Financially, clearly, we want to support where we can, but it's more than that. It's actually being involved day to day in the running of those sorts of projects, and as I say, trying to build and give back something to those communities who, frankly, have been so good to us, and supporting us.
Yeah, it's very true. Natalie O'Sullivan, shout out to her, in Pershore, was approached by the Plum Festival. Now, I know of the Plum Festival because my mum lived in that area. She had a mobile home there, and she always used to go on about it. So the organisers came in to the Pershore office and spoke to Natalie, and Nat called me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Absolutely." And what they were asking for wasn't really enough, so we gave them a little bit more, gave them a few ideas. Natalie's committed hours in terms of helping make it work. We sponsored a colouring competition that they were trying to do for the schools. We displayed the pictures in our windows, and it's that sort of thing. We'll always do as much as we can. It's hard when you're growing a business and acquiring to have too much free cash around, but we're very adamant that each of our offices get involved in the community and do it with a smile on their face. By the way, we want all of our staff to love coming to work and love getting involved and have the time to do it. We created something called Golden Day, that if a member of staff wants a day off, to go and do something, they can have it at our expense. And it's vital that we play that role. We enjoy that role.
Excellent. And we've got a good track record of it. I think, there's so much going on, emails constantly about, can we do this? Can we do that? And, how about getting involved in, the Evesham 10K or whether it's some other kind of charitable endeavour. I think we're all very committed, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, which is great.
We've got a bit of a wager this year.
Yeah.
You really are going to make it go public then, are you? But,
no, Mark and I are both highly competitive as well as everything else. So we've got a bit of a wager on a is it half marathon this year, yet to be determined. So, no, we'll live it and breathe it, and as I say, do it with a smile on our face.
So what does the future hold then? We've talked a lot about our heritage, 181 years old now. What's the future hold? Is it going to look very different in 10, 15 years time, or for just the sector in general and the business in particular, or are we going to sort of just carry on and evolve naturally, organically? What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know whether we could have predicted this 4 years ago that we would be where we are, because we never set out to do what we're doing. But I think we've sort of going there now. We've got more momentum than ever. Our scale gives us opportunities to launch new, I nearly call them service lines, but new opportunities or new disciplines and stuff like mortgages. I think we are now in Leicestershire in quite a reasonable way. So I think there's quite a few towns and villages that we'd quite like to fill. So I guess we'll be doing that.
Yeah, I think we want to stay constantly agile, Kate. I think if anything, if we've learned any lessons from the last few years, it's that actually remaining fleet of foot and remaining open to to new service lines, to adapting to market forces is absolutely something that we're able to do. And as owner drivers of the business, we don't have any great reporting to do. If it's the right thing to do, we'll get on and do it. So no grand plan. I think it's fair to say, Mike, that I'm not sure you're going to be seeing an SBK London office anytime soon, or anything to that effect.
Yeah.
It's we want to continue to serve the communities we operate in and get constantly better at doing that. Really, so.
Yeah, good point. I mean, the thing that keeps me awake at night is for a member of staff to go, Mike doesn't care or Dan doesn't care. So we don't want to get to the point where we can't sweat the small stuff that needs sweating. Because if my theory is if they know the small stuff's important to you, then everything else will be. I think with any business, we're only as good as the people we have. And we have some outstanding people in every department, in every office. And finding those people and retaining them's relatively easy, touch wood, because they're good people and we get on well with them. But I think we will grow as quickly as we have outstanding people alongside us. I mean, our senior team now is just brilliant, isn't it? With all the guys and girls, mainly girls, I have to say, they're fantastic. We've been able to do an awful lot for the staff this year. We increased holidays up to 25 days for everybody. We've just announced a whole series of additional benefits for people who've been with us for 5 years or more. We've actually just introduced some additional bonuses for people 2 years or more. So we're constantly trying to create a perfect meritocracy with really good people, and we can grow as fast as we've got good people, quite simply. So come and join us.
Yeah. So the future's bright.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dan, Mike, very much indeed.
Thank you, Kate.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.